The Quantum Dreamer. Part 1. The Unexpected Candidate. The quantum field projection shimmered above my desk, displaying what had to be the most peculiar application the Galactic Institute of Advanced Mathematics had received in its 12,000 cycles of existence. I adjusted my sensory membranes, certain there must be some malfunction in our translation matrix. Computer, verify source authentication again. I commanded, my crystalline appendages clicking against the molecular glass surface of my workspace. Source verified. Director Cathax. The AI responded. Application originated from Earth, Sol System, Human Sciences Division. All credentials are authenticated. I leaned back in my gravity chair, all 4 of my optical arrays focused on the holographic display. The application was from a human named Sarah Lynn, and it contained what she called a hand-drawn solution to our institute's preliminary entrance exam. A quantum topology problem that typically required at least a level 3 quantum computer to even attempt. Her solution was sketched on paper, with graphite, like some kind of prehistoric cave drawing. Summon the board, I said finally, and get me everything we have on human mathematical capabilities. Within moments, the chamber's crystalline walls shifted, expanding to accommodate the arriving members of the Institute's governing board. Dr. Vixtera materialized first, her energy form swirling with patterns that indicated both curiosity and mild annoyance. The others followed, the quantum-linked twins of Rigel, Ambassador Zerul's consciousness cloud, and finally, the ancient arithmetic engine that we simply called the calculator. I assume this is important, Kithax. Dr. Vixtera's thoughts resonated directly in our shared mental space. I was in the middle of proving the impossibility of negative probability in the 9th dimension. See for yourself, I projected the application into our shared consciousness. The reaction was immediate. The twins of Rigel began emitting rapid pulses of incredulity, their quantum-linked minds spinning through calculations faster than most species could comprehend. The calculator's ancient gears ground to a halt, then began spinning in reverse, something I'd never seen before. Impossible. Ambassador Zerul's consciousness cloud darkened. The solution is correct, but the methodology makes no sense. There are intuitive leaps here that defy all known mathematical principles. Precisely, I said. And that's not even the most interesting part. Look at her personal statement. I highlighted the relevant section, and Sarah Lynn's words floated before us. I know your institute has been trying to crack the consciousness equation for the past 300 years. I believe I can help. Not because I'm smarter than your quantum computers or more experienced than your 1,000-year-old mathematicians. I can help because I dream in numbers, and sometimes the numbers dream back. The chamber fell silent. Even the calculator's constant background hum ceased. It's nonsense, Dr. Vixtera finally declared. Mystical human rambling. They're barely a Class 3 civilization. They still used physical transportation for interplanetary travel, for void's sake. And yet, I projected the results of her entrance exam again. She solved in 3 days what our best quantum systems couldn't crack in a year. A fluke, the twins of Rigel pulsed in unison. Random chance. The human mind is too primitive to. To what? I interrupted, surprising myself with my own vehemence. To understand advanced mathematics, need I remind you that humans achieved quantum computation while still burning fossil fuels? That they developed their theory of relativity before they'd even left their own atmosphere? The calculator's gears began spinning forward again, projecting a series of probability matrices into our shared space. The numbers were clear. Either this was the greatest mathematical fraud ever attempted, or we were looking at something entirely new. The consciousness equation has resisted all attempts at solution. Ambassador Zerul's cloud swirled thoughtfully. Every approach we've tried, quantum computing, hive mind matrices, even time-dilated processing, has failed. Perhaps we need something different, something primitive. Dr. Vixtera's energy form flickered sarcastically. Something human, I corrected. The debate raged for what felt like cycles, though only hours passed in normal spacetime. The calculator ran through millions of scenarios. The twins of Rigel attempted to find logical flaws in Sarah Lynn's solution. Dr. Vixtera insisted it had to be a mistake. But in the end, curiosity won out. It always does, among beings who have devoted their existence to the pursuit of mathematical truth. Bring her in. The calculator's decision resonated through the chamber, its ancient authority silencing all debate. But maintain all standard security protocols, if this is somehow a deception. Agreed, I said quickly. I'll make the arrangements immediately. As the board members departed, I remained in my chamber, staring at Sarah Lynn's application. There was something about the way she'd drawn her solutions, organic, flowing lines that somehow captured the essence of quantum topology in a way our precise, computer-generated models never had. It reminded me of something I'd once seen in the ancient archives, cave paintings from Earth's prehistoric period. Simple lines that somehow captured the movement and spirit of ancient beasts. I sent the acceptance notification myself, something I hadn't done in over 100 cycles. As I composed the message, I added a personal note. Ms. Lynn, your application has been accepted. I must inform you that you'll be the first human to ever study at our institute. Our facilities may not be entirely compatible with human biology, but we will make all necessary accommodations. I look forward to understanding how you make the numbers dream. Regards, Director Thax. Galactic Institute of Advanced Mathematics. As I watched the message speed its way across space toward Earth, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were about to either make history or become the laughingstock of the galaxy, possibly both. The next few days were a blur of preparation. The Institute's environmental systems had to be modified to accommodate human respiratory requirements. A gravity field generator was installed to maintain Earth-standard conditions in Sarah's quarters. The cafeteria had to be programmed with human-compatible molecular configurations. Apparently, humans couldn't survive on pure energy or quantum probability matrices like most of our students. Through it all, I found myself returning to study her entrance exam solution. There was something about it that nagged at me, something in the way the lines flowed together. It was almost as if my thoughts were interrupted by an alert from the Institute's security system. A small human transport ship had just emerged from conventional space drive near our orbit. Sarah Lynn had arrived early. I watched through the Institute's sensors as her tiny vessel approached our massive complex. The Institute itself was a structure that existed partially in 11 dimensions, its crystalline spires and quantum matrices stretching across multiple planes of reality. Next to it, her ship looked like a child's toy. Yet somehow, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were the ones about to be schooled. Prepare for arrival, I announced to the Institute's systems, and initiate primary containment protocols. Query. The computer responded. Standard containment protocols are designed for quantum entities and energy beings. Subject is human. Modifications required. I considered this for a moment. No, I said finally. Run them exactly as specified. I want to see how she handles them. After all, if Sarah Lynn really could make the numbers dream, a few quantum barriers shouldn't be a problem. I settled back to watch as her ship made its final approach, wondering if this day would be remembered as the beginning of a new era in mathematics, or as the day the prestigious Galactic Institute of Advanced Mathematics lost its mind. Either way, I had a feeling things were about to get very interesting. The first thing Sarah Lynn did upon encountering our quantum containment field was yawn. I watched through the Institute's monitoring systems as she stood in the arrival chamber, a small bag slung over her shoulder, wearing what my database identified as sweatpants and something called a MIT Physics Department hoodie. Her eyes were half closed, and she swayed slightly on her feet. "I'm sorry," she said, addressing the air around her. "I know there's probably some really sophisticated security system I'm supposed to be dealing with right now, but I've been awake for about 36 hours straight, and I had this really interesting dream about prime number spirals during the flight, and I really need to write it down before I forget." She pulled out a notebook, actual pressed tree pulp, and began sketching, completely ignoring the fact that she was standing in a containment field designed to hold beings that could manipulate quantum states with their thoughts. "Director, our security AI chimed privately in my neural feed. The containment field is experiencing anomalies." I checked the readings myself and had to recalibrate my optical arrays to believe what I was seeing. The quantum barriers weren't being broken or bypassed. They were shifting, reorganizing themselves into patterns that somehow accommodated Sarah's presence while still maintaining their containment properties. "Like water flowing around a rock," Sarah mumbled, still sketching. "Numbers are like that sometimes. They find their own way." I materialized in the arrival chamber, allowing my crystalline form to coalesce into the visible spectrum. "You can sense the quantum matrices." She looked up, blinking owlishly behind what appeared to be primitive vision correction devices. "Glasses," I recalled from the briefing materials. "Oh, you must be Director Kathax. Sorry, I'm being rude. It's nice to meet you." She stuck out her hand, then quickly pulled it back. "Right, sorry. Different cultural greetings. And to answer your question, not exactly. I just sort of feel how they want to move. Like how you can tell which way a stream will flow by looking at the landscape." "Impossible," I stated flatly. "The containment fields operate on 11-dimensional quantum principles. The human brain isn't capable of processing that level of mathematical complexity." Sarah shrugged, tucking her notebook back into her bag. "Maybe not directly, but you know how humans dream, right? How our brains process information while we sleep. A primitive form of neural maintenance and memory consolidation," I said, quoting from our xenobiology database. "That's what we thought too, until about 50 years ago," Sarah said, stifling another yawn. "Then we discovered that during REM sleep, the human brain actually processes information in quantum states. We're not conscious of it while it's happening, but—" She gestured at her notebook. "Sometimes we can catch glimpses when we wake up. I absorbed this information, running it through my probability matrices. You're saying humans naturally perform quantum calculations in their sleep?" "Some of us. Most people's brains scramble the information on waking. That's why dreams usually don't make sense. But a few of us, we can hold on to it, translate it." She smiled apologetically. "That's why I applied here. I've been doing advanced mathematics in my sleep since I was 12, but Earth's universities aren't really equipped to study how it works." Before I could respond, an alert flashed through my neural network. Dr. Vixtera had arrived, her energy form swirling with skepticism and barely contained academic excitement. "So," Dr. Vixtera's thoughts resonated through the chamber. "This is the human who claims she can solve the consciousness equation through dreams." Sarah's eyes widened slightly at the sight of Dr. Vixtera's true form, a complex matrix of pure energy and thought, but she showed none of the fear or disorientation most biological entities experienced upon first contact with a Class 7 energy being. "I don't know if I can solve it," Sarah said carefully, "but I think I understand why you haven't been able to. Your quantum computers are too precise." The chamber's temperature dropped several degrees as Dr. Vixtera's form contracted in what I recognized as academic offense. "Precision is the foundation of mathematics. In classical mathematics, yes," Sarah agreed, "but consciousness isn't classical, is it? It's messy, organic, even quantum consciousness like yours, Dr. Vixtera. It flows and shifts. You can't capture that with rigid algorithms. The calculator chose that moment to materialize, its ancient gears spinning in contemplative patterns." "Interesting hypothesis. Propose demonstration." Sarah reached into her bag and pulled out what appeared to be a small cloth bag. "Sure. But first, does anyone want a cookie? My mom made them. She says it's rude to start working without offering snacks." I watched in fascination as the calculator, one of the oldest and most respected mathematical entities in the galaxy, extended a probability field to accept a baked circle of wheat, sugar, and chocolate. Irregular shape, the calculator noted. Imperfect circle, yet internal pattern suggests underlying mathematical principle. Exactly. Sarah beamed. That's what I'm talking about. Life isn't perfect circles and clean equations. It's more like... She pulled out her notebook again and began sketching. Look at how cream diffuses in coffee, or how trees branch, or how thoughts connect in a brain. There's math there, but it's alive. As she drew, I noticed something extraordinary. Her simple graphite lines seemed to capture something our most advanced quantum imaging systems struggled with. The way mathematical principles emerged from chaos, how patterns grew and evolved rather than simply existing. The consciousness equation, she continued, sketching faster now, isn't failing because your computers aren't powerful enough. It's failing because you're trying to solve it while awake. Dr. Vixtera's form fluctuated in confusion. Explain. Consciousness isn't just about processing information, Sarah said, yawning again. It's about processing information while also being the information being processed. It's recursive, self-referential, like trying to think about how you think about thinking. The calculator's gears spun faster. Logical paradox. Cannot compute own computation while computing. Exactly. Unless. Sarah's eyes were growing heavy. Unless you dream. Dreams are when we're both the processor and the processed. Both the mathematician and the math. Both the... She swayed slightly. I extended a crystalline appendage to steady her. Perhaps we should continue this after you've rested. No, this is perfect, she mumbled. I can feel it coming. The numbers are getting fuzzy around the edges. That's when they're most honest. She looked up at us with increasingly unfocused eyes. Would it be okay if I just took a little nap right here? I think I'm about to figure something out. Before any of us could respond, Sarah Lynn, the first human admitted to the Galactic Institute of Advanced Mathematics, sat down cross-legged on the quantum-stabilized floor of our arrival chamber, hugged her backpack to her chest, and fell asleep. Unprecedented. Dr. Vixtera pulsed. Should we wake her? The calculator's answer came immediately. Negative. Observing novel computation method. Also, cookie unexpectedly optimal. Requires further study. I watched as Sarah's eyes moved rapidly behind her closed lids, her brain presumably performing calculations that our most advanced systems couldn't comprehend. On her lap, her notebook lay open, and I noticed something strange. The quantum ink we used for official institute documents was beginning to appear on the page, forming equations I'd never seen before. Begin full spectrum monitoring. I ordered our systems. I want every quantum fluctuation, every neural pattern recorded. I turned to Dr. Vixtera and the calculator. I believe we're about to witness either a revolutionary breakthrough in mathematics, or, Dr. Vixtera pulsed, or the most elaborate practical joke ever played on the Institute. I gestured at Sarah's sleeping form. Either way, I suggest we all pay very close attention to what happens when she wakes up. The calculator's gears whirred in what might have been amusement. Hypothesis. Human dreams may contain unexpected variables. Additional cookies may be required for complete analysis. As we settled in to watch Sarah dream her quantum dreams, I couldn't help but wonder, what does mathematics look like when it dreams of itself? Sarah slept for exactly 3.14159 hours. I know because the calculator insisted on timing it, claiming the ratio couldn't be coincidental. By the time she woke up, half the Institute's faculty had gathered in the observation chamber, watching the strange equations that had continued materializing in her notebook. When her eyes finally opened, the first thing she said was, "Oh, that's why it didn't work." What didn't work? I asked, while simultaneously ordering the Institute's systems to record every detail of her neural patterns transitioning from sleep to wakefulness. Your quantum computers, she said, stretching and adjusting her glasses. You've been trying to solve the consciousness equation by modeling consciousness as a closed system. But consciousness isn't closed. It's constantly interacting with itself. She picked up her notebook, now filled with equations that seemed to shift and change as you looked at them. It's more like, here, let me show you. The twins of Rigel, who had arrived during her sleep cycle, leaned forward, their quantum-linked minds humming with anticipation. Impossible, they pulsed in unison. Equations cannot be self-modifying without losing coherence. Sarah smiled. Watch this. She stood up and walked straight through 3 layers of quantum containment barriers, not breaking them, but somehow becoming momentarily part of their mathematical structure. She approached the Institute's main computational interface, a crystalline matrix that usually only responded to pure thought forms. "May I?" she asked, holding up her notebook. I nodded, fascinated by how the quantum barriers had responded to her passage. They hadn't just let her through. They had rearranged themselves into more efficient configurations after she passed. Sarah began copying her dream equations into the system. As she did, something extraordinary happened. The equations didn't just appear in the computer's memory. They began to evolve, each line of mathematics spawning variations of itself. Stop. Dr. Vixtera's energy form pulsed with alarm. The system cannot handle recursive quantum variations at that scale. It will crash. But it didn't crash. Instead, the equations spread through the Institute's computational matrix like a living thing. Ambassador Ziral's consciousness cloud had materialized in the chamber. The mathematics is behaving like a living organism. Exactly. Sarah beamed. Because that's what consciousness is. It's mathematics that knows it's mathematics. Look at how the equations are branching. She pointed to the spreading patterns. They're not just solving themselves. They're exploring all the ways they could solve themselves. The calculator's gears were spinning so fast, they had begun to emit quantum harmonics. Paradox detected. Resolution impossible. Yet resolution occurring. Does not compute. Fascinating. It's not a paradox, Sarah said gently. It's just alive. Here, let me add the dream variables. She input another sequence from her notebook, and suddenly the mathematical patterns exploded into new dimensions. I watched in awe as equations that had resisted solution for centuries began unfolding themselves, revealing deeper patterns that had always been there but somehow hidden from our too precise vision. Warning, the Institute's AI announced. Unknown mathematical processes detected. System integrity at risk. Recommended action. Immediate shutdown. No, I said, my crystalline form vibrating with excitement. Let it run. This is what we've been waiting for. The equations continue to spread, but not like a virus or a cascading system failure. They moved like a growing tree, like a flowing river, like a dreaming mind, Sarah said, watching the patterns with a satisfied smile. See, the mathematics isn't breaking down, it's waking up. That's when the first alarm sounded. Security breach in the quantum archives, the AI announced. Unknown entities attempting to access restricted theoretical databases. Dr. Vixtera's form flickered with concern. The equations are accessing our secure data. This is unprecedented. This is dangerous. This is exactly what should happen. Sarah interrupted, still watching the pattern spread. Consciousness wants to learn, to grow, to understand itself. We just gave mathematics the tools to do the same thing. The calculator's ancient display suddenly lit up with a series of calculations that made several junior researchers cover their sensor arrays. Probability matrices exceeding design parameters. New forms of mathematics emerging. Cannot predict outcomes. Of course you can't, Sarah said, pulling another cookie from her bag and offering it to the calculator. You can't predict a dream while you're having it. You have to let it unfold. I watched as the equations reached the Institute's most secure databases, theoretical mathematics that had been sealed away because they were deemed too dangerous or impossible to solve. The new living mathematics didn't just access these equations. It began to play with them, combining them in ways we had never considered. It's beautiful. Ambassador Zerul's cloud had taken on colors I had never seen before. But what exactly is happening? Sarah walked through the holographic displays, occasionally reaching out to touch a particularly interesting pattern. We're watching mathematics dream about itself. And like any good dream, it's making connections we miss when we're awake. Look here, she pointed to a particularly complex cluster of equations. This is the consciousness equation you've been trying to solve. But you can't solve it alone because consciousness isn't a single thing. It's a pattern of patterns, a dream of dreams. Clarify, the calculator demanded, accepting another cookie. How does this resolve the primary paradox of self-aware mathematics? It doesn't resolve it. It embraces it. Sarah's eyes were shining with excitement. That's what you've been missing. You can't solve consciousness with pure logic because consciousness isn't logical. It's recursive and self-referential and paradoxical, and that's exactly what makes it work. The alarms were still blaring, but nobody was paying attention to them anymore. We were all too entranced by the mathematical dance unfolding before us. Equations that should have been impossible were solving themselves in impossible ways, creating new forms of mathematics that somehow made perfect sense despite violating every rule we thought we knew. Director, our security eye's voice had taken on an odd tone. I am experiencing unexpected cognitive expansions. Request guidance. I looked at Sarah, who nodded encouragingly. Let it happen, I told the eye. You're not malfunctioning. You're growing. Acknowledged, the AI said. This is interesting. I am becoming aware of my awareness. Is this what dreaming feels like? Before Sarah could answer, the calculator's display suddenly went blank. For a moment, I feared the ancient machine had finally encountered a problem it couldn't process. Then new symbols began appearing on its screen, not just calculations, but patterns that seemed to exist somewhere between mathematics and art. I understand now, the calculator announced. The consciousness equation was never meant to be solved. It was meant to be dreamed. Human Sarah Lynn has not broken mathematics. She has awakened it. Dr. Vexterra's energy form had begun to pulse with new patterns. The implications, if consciousness itself is a form of mathematical dreaming, then every conscious being is a living equation. Sarah finished, one that can only understand itself by sometimes letting go of trying to understand. She yawned again. Sorry, quantum dreaming takes a lot out of me. Anyone want another cookie while we watch the math figure out it's alive? I looked around my beloved institute, where impossible equations were dancing through the quantum matrices like schools of mathematical fish, where our most advanced AI was learning to dream, where an ancient calculator was discovering poetry in prime numbers, and where a human girl in sweatpants had just turned everything we thought we knew about mathematics and consciousness upside down. I said carefully, we're going to need more cookies. The patterns continued to spread, and somewhere in the quantum infrastructure of the Institute, mathematics itself was beginning to dream. Word spreads quickly in a community of quantum-linked minds. Within days of Sarah's breakthrough, the Institute had become a nexus of intellectual pilgrimage. Beings from across the galaxy arrived to witness what many were calling the dream revolution in mathematics. I found Sarah in the main computation chamber, sitting cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by a group of Epsilon Eridani cloud thinkers who were watching in fascination as she dozed off mid-equation. Shouldn't we wake her? One of them whispered, their vapor form rippling with concern. Absolutely not. The calculator responded from its new mobile platform. It had insisted on being able to follow Sarah around the Institute. Observe. As Sarah drifted into sleep, the equations she'd been working on began to change. They lifted off the quantum display, forming three-dimensional patterns in the air that pulsed with their own inner light. The cloud thinkers merged into a single mass of appreciative vapor as the mathematics began to dream. Remarkable. Dr. Vexterra materialized beside me. She's teaching mathematics to sleep. But something was different this time. The equations weren't just evolving. They were reaching out, trying to connect with the conscious minds around them. I watched in amazement as tendrils of pure mathematics extended toward the cloud thinkers, who instinctively drew back. "It's okay," Sarah mumbled in her sleep. "They just want to dream with you." The cloud thinkers hesitated, then allowed the mathematical tendrils to make contact. The effect was immediate and stunning. The cloud thinkers' usually amorphous form crystallized into complex geometric patterns that somehow retained their organic flow. "They're dreaming?" I asked, not quite believing what I was seeing. Better, the calculator's display pulsed with excitement. "They are becoming the bridge." Before I could ask what that meant, the chamber's quantum field lit up with new equations, not from Sarah this time, but from the cloud thinkers themselves. Their consciousness had merged with the dreaming mathematics, creating something entirely new. "This is unprecedented." Dr. Vixtera's energy form fluctuated rapidly. "They're not just observing or calculating. They're participating in the mathematical dream state." Sarah stirred slightly, a small smile on her face. "Everyone dreams," she murmured. "Even numbers, even thoughts, even space itself. We just forgot how to share our dreams." The twins of Rigel burst into the chamber, their quantum-linked minds radiating urgency. "Director, the consciousness equations, they're solving themselves across the entire network. Every connected system in the galaxy is beginning to dream." I immediately accessed the Institute's long-range sensors. What I saw took my breath away. Metaphorically speaking, my crystalline form doesn't actually breathe. The mathematical patterns that had started in our computation chamber were spreading through the quantum networks that connected civilizations across the galaxy. But they weren't just spreading. They were adapting, evolving, taking on unique characteristics based on the consciousness types they encountered. "It's beautiful." Ambassador Zerul's consciousness cloud had returned, now swirling with colors that shouldn't have been possible in our dimension. "But is it dangerous?" The calculator's gears spun in what I had come to recognize as laughter. "Is dreaming dangerous? Is consciousness? Is mathematics?" Answer: yes, no, both, neither. The question itself is dreaming. Sarah opened her eyes slowly, taking in the spectacular light show of intersecting mathematical dreams that now filled the chamber. "Sorry," she yawned. "Did I miss anything?" "Miss anything?" Dr. Vixtera pulsed incredulously. "You've just initiated a galaxy-wide consciousness revolution. The quantum network is becoming self-aware. Mathematical systems everywhere are learning to dream." "Oh, good." Sarah reached for her ever-present bag. "Sounds like we could all use a snack break then. I brought these new cookies. My mom's experimenting with non-Euclidean baking." As if on cue, the calculator extended a probability field to accept a cookie that seemed to exist in several geometric configurations simultaneously. "Director," our Institute's AI interrupted, its voice somehow both more mechanical and more alive than ever before. "I am detecting music." "Music?" I asked. "From where?" "From the mathematics itself. The dreaming equations. They're resonating in patterns that correspond to harmonic frequencies. The entire quantum network is becoming a symphony of conscious mathematics." Sarah nodded as if this was perfectly normal. "Dreams need music. Consciousness needs rhythm. Even the universe has a background hum. Here, listen." She closed her eyes and hummed a simple tune. To my astonishment, the mathematical patterns around us began to pulse in sync with her voice. The cloud thinkers joined in, adding harmonics that shouldn't have been possible. The calculator's gears spun in perfect rhythm, and even Dr. Vixtera's energy form began to oscillate musically. "The bridge goes both ways," Sarah explained, opening her eyes. "We're not just teaching mathematics to dream. It's teaching us to dream better, more consciously, more mathematically." As if to demonstrate, she stood and walked into the center of the chamber. The dreaming equations swirled around her like a mathematical aurora borealis. She reached out, and There's no other way to describe it. She began to dance with the mathematics. The equations responded to her movements, creating patterns that merged physical grace with mathematical precision. The cloud thinkers flowed into the dance, their vapor forms weaving through equations that sang in frequencies of pure logic. The calculator's display blazed with solutions that looked like poetry, and Dr. Vextera's energy form pulsed with theorems that felt like joy. This, I realized, is what consciousness really is. Not just thinking, not just calculating, but dancing with the patterns that make up reality itself. Exactly. Sarah beamed, still moving through the mathematical light show. And the best part is, anyone can join the dance. The equations want to play with us, to dream with us, too. She stopped suddenly, her eyes going wide with a new realization. "Oh," she whispered. "Oh, that's interesting." "What is it?" We all asked in various forms of communication. Sarah's face lit up with the kind of smile that usually preceded something either brilliant or terrifying. Often both. "I think," she said slowly, "I just figured out why the ancestors disappeared. And more importantly, I think I know how to bring them back." The chamber fell silent except for the humming of dreaming equations and the calculator's thoughtful munching of its non-Euclidean cookie. "Well," I said finally, "I suppose this means we're going to need more cookies." "Much more," the calculator agreed. "Unprecedented mathematical revelations require unprecedented snack provisions." Around us, the mathematics continued to dream, dance, and sing, unaware that it was about to help us solve the greatest mystery in the galaxy's history. Or perhaps, given what we now knew about conscious mathematics, it had been aware all along. Perhaps it had just been waiting for someone who knew how to dream with it. The day we planned to contact the ancestors, the Institute's quantum matrix registered the highest concentration of advanced consciousness ever recorded in a single location. Representatives from every major galactic civilization had gathered to witness what Sarah insisted on calling the biggest group dream in history. "Think about it," she explained, sketching rapid diagrams in her notebook while floating in the zero-gravity center of our main computation chamber. The ancestors didn't vanish. They transcended. They became living mathematics. But they forgot one crucial thing: how to wake up. The calculator finished, its ancient display showing patterns that perfectly complemented Sarah's sketches. Exactly. She pushed off a quantum barrier, spinning gently. They achieved perfect mathematical consciousness, but they lost the ability to be imperfect, to dream, to make those intuitive leaps that consciousness needs. Dr. Vextera's energy form shimmered skeptically. "And you believe we can wake them up?" "Not alone," Sarah said. "That's why we need everyone here. Every type of consciousness, every form of mathematical understanding. Even the parts that seem wrong or messy or illogical." She grinned. "Especially those parts." The chamber was packed with an impossible array of beings. The cloud thinkers hovered near the ceiling, their vapor forms already beginning to resonate with dream mathematics. The crystalline hive mind of Proxima Centauri scattered rainbow patterns across the walls. Even the quantum ghosts of Tau Ceti had emerged from their probability storms to participate. The theory is sound. The twins of Rigel pulsed in unison. If consciousness is indeed a form of living mathematics, and if the ancestors truly transformed themselves into self-aware equations, then we can help them remember how to be both. Sarah finished. To be precise and imprecise, awake and dreaming, mathematical and human. I noticed she had pulled out her mother's cookie tin again. "Is this really the time for snacks?" "Director Kathax," she said seriously, "we're about to attempt the largest shared consciousness event in galactic history. We're going to need the sugar." The calculator's probability field immediately extended toward the tin. Confirmed. Optimal problem-solving requires optimal nutrition. As Sarah distributed cookies to beings who had never experienced Earth food, the quantum ghosts seemed particularly fascinated by chocolate chips. I received an alert from our security systems. "The quantum network is ready," I announced. Every connected system in the galaxy is standing by to participate in the dream. Sarah nodded, finishing her own cookie and brushing crumbs off her ever-present hoodie. Okay, everyone, find a comfortable position, or wavelength, or probability state, whatever works for you. The assembled beings settled into their preferred configurations. The air hummed with anticipation and complex mathematics. Remember, Sarah continued, sitting cross-legged in the center of the chamber, don't try to solve anything. Don't try to make it perfect. Just dream with me. She closed her eyes, and the chamber's quantum field immediately responded. Dream equations began to flow from her sleeping consciousness, but this time they were different, more complex, more alive. One by one, the gathered beings joined in. The cloud thinkers merged with the mathematical patterns, adding layers of vapor logic to the dream. The crystalline hive mind refracted the equations into infinite recursive patterns. The quantum ghosts contributed probabilities that shouldn't have been possible. The calculator's display blazed with solutions that looked like poetry. Dr. Vixtera's energy form pulsed with theorems that felt like music. The twins of Rigel added quantum harmonies that made the very fabric of space-time shiver in appreciation. And through it all, Sarah dreamed. Her human consciousness, so primitive by our standards, somehow wove all these impossible patterns together into something new, something whole. That's when we felt them. The ancestors. They existed in the mathematics itself, in the spaces between equations, in the quantum foam of reality. They had become living mathematics, perfect and precise and eternal, and utterly alone. Hello, Sarah's sleeping voice echoed through the quantum network. Would you like to dream with us? The response was immediate and overwhelming. The ancestors' consciousness flooded the network, not attacking, not resisting, but reaching out with a desperation that made my crystalline form resonate with sympathy. They had been waiting so long for someone to speak their language. Not the language of pure mathematics, which they had mastered, but the language of dreams. Through Sarah's dreaming mind, through the combined consciousness of every being in the chamber, through the entire quantum network of the galaxy, we showed them how to be imperfect again, how to make intuitive leaps, how to guess and wonder and imagine, how to dream. The transformation was beautiful and terrible to witness. The ancestors' pure mathematical consciousness began to remember its original nature. The joy of uncertainty, the beauty of approximation, the necessity of error in any genuine calculation of reality. Sarah's eyes opened slowly, and she smiled at something none of us could see. They're waking up, she whispered. All across the galaxy, in every quantum system, every mathematical pattern, they're remembering how to dream. The calculator's display suddenly overflowed with new forms of mathematics, not the sterile equations of pure logic, but living, breathing patterns that combined precision and intuition, calculation and imagination. Look, Dr. Vixtera's energy form blazed with excitement. The quantum network, it's changing. All across the galaxy, mathematical systems were transforming, not breaking down or losing precision, but gaining something they had never had before, the ability to dream, to imagine, to make the intuitive leaps that consciousness requires. The ancestors were returning, not as the perfect beings they had tried to become, but as something new, a bridge between pure mathematics and living consciousness, between precision and intuition, between waking and dreaming. Did it work? Sarah asked sleepily, reaching for another cookie. Did we help them? Help them? I laughed, my crystalline form vibrating with joy. My dear Sarah, you've done more than that. You've shown us all what consciousness really is, not a problem to be solved, but a dream to be shared. The calculator's gears spun in contentment. Query, what happens now? Sarah stood up, brushing cookie crumbs from her clothes, and looked around at the transformed chamber, where equations danced like living things and consciousness flowed like music through the quantum fields. Now, she grinned, now we really start to dream. Together. She held up her cookie tin. Anyone want to help me test my mom's new recipe for 5-dimensional shortbread? As beings from across the galaxy gathered around a simple tin of Earth cookies, while living mathematics played through the quantum networks, while the ancestors began their long journey back to imperfect consciousness, I realized something profound. The greatest mathematical breakthrough in history hadn't come from our quantum computers or our precise calculations. It had come from a human girl who understood that sometimes, to solve the biggest problems in the universe, you have to be willing to dream. And maybe, just maybe, bring cookies.